Hey everybody, welcome to today's or this month's AMA call, happening today on Monday, March 12th. So I am back from vacation and I hope you guys had a really productive couple weeks. I know that for me, it was just really good. We've not had a 2-week vacation without working for a long time. Our longer vacations we tend to do as working vacations because that's one of the perks, right, of having your own business is that you can kind of work from anywhere. And so we've taken a longer vacation a couple years ago, right when my husband had first quit his job. And we did a working vacation where we would work 2 to 3 hours every morning and then head out for the day and explore. And so when you're away for longer and you're doing that, you still kind of feel like you're in. But we took a total break. No emails, no nothing. I popped into the Facebook group twice. So it was a really different kind of experience to take that break, but I think it was really good. And one of the things that was just that I've been kind of reflecting on a little bit is how much that space, it's just so good for us to slow down. I think for those of you that are entrepreneurs, like feeling the need to hustle all the time can be a little bit crippling. Like we sometimes feel like we have to work really hard. And I've always, because of my story and because of my journey from depression and chronic pain into a much slower paced life, because my body needs it, I haven't subscribed since I've started my business to the whole like hustle really hard and like put in 60-hour weeks. Like there have been weeks when I've really pushed and I come back from vacation and now we're heading into quarterly planning party and I'm opening up the doors for the next quarter of the planning circle. So it's a big couple weeks. And that is great. But I don't sacrifice my health and I don't sacrifice time with my family for my business. That's just something that I decided. But it was really great to be on vacation, to just have that space and just be together for a couple of weeks. So the first week was with my whole extended family, which was a lot of fun, although it was kind of a cool, wet week, so it wasn't ideal. But the second week we had gorgeous weather and it was wonderful. But I am glad to be back. All right, so let's jump in really quick. We're going to do the AMA part of the call, and then I'm going to post some polls in the Facebook group because I have a few questions. You guys really helped me out last week, or our last call. It was the planning party, and you helped me. I was thinking of how to do my affiliate, and I had a few ideas, and you guys gave me a brilliant idea, and you were like, we want time with you as our bonus for like as your affiliate reward, as opposed to like a discount off the next quarter or the next time you register or something like that. So that was super helpful. So I've got a few other things that I want your feedback on as I'm finalizing everything for the next quarter. So yeah, exciting. All right. So basically, there was just one question that was submitted ahead of time. There's not a whole lot of people live, but if you have questions, submit them in the chat and then we can talk about those. And then I will post the replay to the Facebook group as soon as I can get it saved and uploaded. All right, so the question that was submitted was by Jennifer, and she asked, do you have any advice on how to set deadlines and stick to them? So this is a big thing. So basically, we know the Modern Planner Framework. Like you guys should have heard me talk about it at least once. But if not, here's a quick refresher for you. It's prioritize, plan, act, adjust. Okay. So these are the 4 steps to getting anything done, to what I believe as if you follow those 4 steps every day in every area of your life over and over again, that it will help you be really productive, effective. And it's not all about being as productive as possible, but it will help you be intentional in everything that you do. So one of the keys, Jennifer, but to everyone, is prioritizing and figuring out what you're going to do is really, really important. Okay. Plan is the next one. Obviously, this is my sweet spot. This is what I love. I love planning, teaching people how to create plans. That's why it's called the planning circle, quarterly planning circle. Okay. However, act is so, so necessary. And that's why, like next quarter, one of our topics is schedule. So that's in that act piece. So basically everything I teach is under these 4. Like we talked about priorities this month. That's one of the things we talk about. We did project planning, right? The weekly review is more of like an act piece where we take the things that we're doing, and the weekly review is kind of how we actually get things done and do things, right? So everything that I teach really falls under those categories. So one of the ways to look at it is also to have like, think about it in that way and realize that although it's really important to have a plan, setting deadlines and sticking to it, that's the act piece, right? So that's nothing to do with your planning, although the better your plan, the easier it will be to act and execute. However, we all have distractions. We all have things that get in the way. And so that's one of the things that's really important. Hi, Kiana. I know you're probably listening at work, so I'll just say hi. Feel free to add anything in the chat if you need to. We've got chat only going on today because everyone's just listening in. So that's one of the things to remember about setting deadlines and sticking to them. So here's a few like practical kind of tactical things that I do. So the one thing that I do is I'm used to be the queen of procrastinating. So procrastinating going to bed as a child, procrastinating, like I was so good. But what I've learned to do is think about how the result of what does cramming, like how does that make me feel? What are the emotions and the stress or anxiety? Like what is it that I'm feeling when I'm cramming right at the very end? How does that make me feel? If it doesn't make me feel good, which usually it doesn't because I get stressed and emotional, I get snappy with other people. So I think about what do I feel at the end? And you know what? I don't want to feel that way. So I'm going to like work my plan and stick with the deadlines I've given myself because I don't want that feeling at the end. Now, I get that there's some seasons where we just have to dive all in, focus on something and get it done. And it feels like when it's over, we kind of are coming up for air, and that's totally okay. But that's a little bit different. So one of the other things that I would recommend doing is set small rewards for the milestones or mini deadlines that you have. So a lot of times what happens is we have a big deadline and it's so far away that then we kind of are like, oh, well, I have time. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I have big sneezes. So what happens is we procrastinate because we're like, oh, I have lots of time. But this is where the better your plan, the harder it will be for you to do that. Because if you've got a plan for, say, the next 6 weeks to get something done, and you have a mini deadline or like mini milestone every single week that you have to hit in order to achieve that final goal, it's going to be a lot harder for you to say, oh, I'll just push that off. It's like, no, like you have to get that done this week so you can get that done the next week, and they build on each other. So the mini milestones and deadlines, breaking that all down, that was really going to help you. And then the other thing is give yourself rewards for things, especially when you're like really focused on a project. When you've got those deadlines, it doesn't have to be a food reward. It can be all sorts of things. It's going to be like, you know what, when I get this done at the end of the week, I am going to celebrate by going for like a 2-hour hike on the weekend or whatever it might be, right? Like whatever works for you to motivate you. It can be totally free and have nothing to do with food. But I just think it's real. And I say that because I have emotional food eating issues. So for me, rewards that are not food-based are better because otherwise I get into my emotional eating cycle, and that's not healthy. So set small rewards for those deadlines. And so that's another way of really setting deadlines and sticking to them, is being like, okay, if I get this done by Friday at 4, then, we're going to do this, or I'm going to book myself a manicure for the following week, or I'm just going to paint my nails at home, whatever that might look like, right? So another recommendation that I have is to be more realistic. So sometimes we procrastinate and we put off things that we want to be doing, even though they are a priority. We put them off because it's just too big. And again, this comes back to planning. The more detailed your plan is, the less overwhelming your task feels. And the more overwhelming something is, the more we push it off because we don't want to do it, right? So when you have a task that says, purge your entire house this month, just no one is going to be inspired to do that, right? Where it's like, if I say I'm going to do this room this week, and then you break that down into daily tasks, that's way easier for me to say, yes, I'm going to do that. So that first part of it is to be more realistic. Sometimes we just expect too much of ourselves and we've got way too many things to get done in a specific deadline. The flip side of that is to give yourself less time. So sometimes shorter deadlines, especially if you thrive doing things last minute, shorter deadlines, set them really, really close and give yourself more of them. So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to get the house cleaned this week, say, I'm going to get the house cleaned in an hour and a half and set a timer and just do it. And today, like by noon today, the house is going to be clean, as opposed to like, I'm going to give myself a whole week to do. So those are some different kind of ways to look at it. And really, this is the thing about the acting piece, right? Prioritize, plan, act, adjust. The acting piece is that it's so personal to each of us. So that's why you want to try a bunch of stuff out. This is trial and error, guys. It's not easy. It's not always fun, and it can take some time. But once we find what works for us, then it's golden, right? And remember, though, is that sometimes what works for us in one season doesn't work for us in another. So an example, when Em was a baby, so for the fall, basically September through to December, because let's be honest, the first 2 months after she was born, I didn't do any cleaning at all. I wiped the kitchen and did dishes, but like I didn't actually clean my house. Joseph vacuumed and dusted a couple times, but like our bathrooms didn't get touched for like 8 weeks. It was gross. And I shouldn't have told you that. TMI. Anyway, but I'm sure any of the moms can relate. So for the fall, what worked for me was every day doing one cleaning thing. So it was like Mondays, I'm going to dust the house, and Tuesdays, I'm going to vacuum the house, and like Wednesday, because she was napping at really short periods of time, I kind of was flexible every day of the week. I only had the car 2 days. So I spread my cleaning out and had daily tasks. Well, that stopped working for me because now I have 2 days of my week devoted to working and devoted when I have a nanny. So I don't do any cleaning on Mondays and Fridays, because why would we? Like, why would I spend time doing that when I have a nanny and I'm working, right? And then at night, I want to be with her and not be cleaning. So now what I do is I have one cleaning day, and on Wednesdays, and my goal is first nap. So her first nap, I attack my cleaning and I try to get it all done in one nap. And it depends on how long she sleeps. Usually her first nap is around an hour, give or take. But if it's a 30-minute nap, I obviously don't get it done. Right. So that's just an example of how I had found something that was working for me with my schedule. And then something changed in my schedule, and now it wasn't working for me anymore. And so that's the same thing with like deadlines and learning how to stick to it. A reward might work for you for a certain season, but it might not work for another. Okay, so those were a couple things I wanted to mention. The other thing, which I love this, so my friend Lauren Black, which maybe I'll bring her in as a guest expert for something, because I think that might be fun. But she keeps track of tasks using the length of time it's going to take her. So you know how we all go through a day and it's like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to call that person. Oh, I need to RSVP. So you can do this personal and business. And if you do, I'd recommend keeping them very separate. So you can do this either way. But whenever she thinks of a task, she assigns a time limit to it. And she uses something called Todoist. I use Trello. And so this is one of the main downsides of Trello. Actually, there's two. No, just the one. The main downside is that a specific task can't have its own deadline. So I can't like list a bunch of tasks and put individual deadlines. Only cards can have deadlines. And so I can assign a card a deadline, but I can't assign all the little tasks inside. So I've figured out ways around that. Like I put my due date in the title of my checklist and stuff like that. But anyway, and so what she'll do is she has a little list called 60-minute, 30-minute, 15, and 5. And as she thinks of tasks for her business that need to get done, she adds them to whatever checklist so if it's replying to an email from somebody, she'll be, reply to da-da-da-da, and she puts the due date and she puts it in like the 5-minute task item. That way, whenever and this sort of has to do with deadlines and sticking to them and sort of not. I just thought it was a really good thing to share with you guys because it sort of applies. Then if it's like, she's like, okay, I've got 10 minutes before this meeting or 15 minutes before this meeting, what could I do? And she pulls up and she's like, oh, well, I've got this 15-minute task. I'll get that done before. And so even keeping track of your tasks with using time length like that, I think can help, especially when you have deadlines, because you're able to see, okay, I'm going to get this deadline done. And it's going to take about this much time. And the other key is to schedule it in. So really, if you've got a project, and this is why we always do this on every planning party, right? We do the schedule piece at the end, and it's like, put in for this project all in your calendar when you're going to work on it. And so I think that's a really important thing, because we have this interesting thing as individuals, and we're going to talk all about schedule next month, and I'm super excited about it. It's probably one of my more passionate topics. And so what, I saw Brittany's comment in the chat, and then I totally forgot what I was going to say. Scheduling. So let me just do this real quick. So the thing is we're very interesting as a society, because what happens is I have a meeting or an appointment or a doctor's appointment. Like, those things go in my calendar and I keep them. And if I can't, I email that person. I'm like, hey, sorry, I can't make this. Can we reschedule? Right? And so, but we do that. But the thing is we don't put dates or appointments with ourselves in our calendar. And then we wonder, well, why is my fitness not important? Like, this is an example. I have to start putting working out in my calendar again, because doing my Mutu program, or like doing a workout and doing physio, like just having those on my daily to-do list is not important enough. Like, it just doesn't happen. I mean, it's important, but it's not visible enough for me to do it. So I need to get back to actually putting in my schedule, and then making sure, Joseph, can you watch M during this time so I can work out? So I need to be a lot more aware of that and intentional about that with working out. So, but this is the same with deadlines. So we don't keep appointments with ourselves. And that becomes challenging, because then, even though we've said this thing is a priority and this project is important and it's a priority, or my health is a priority, if it's not in our calendar, then it's not going to get done. And so what I would encourage you to do is, if you have a deadline or if you have a priority, since this month is about priorities, let's pull that in a bit more. If you've got something that you've said, this is really important to me and this is what I'm focusing on this month, where is it in your schedule? If it does not show up in any scheduled time, how important is it really? And that is what I think is really important, because what is in our calendar, or what is in our, like, what our priorities are, will show up in our calendar, or they should, right? So if it's not, is it really a priority, or do you need to relook at that? So those are some examples and some ideas on how to set deadlines and stick to them. I really hope that was helpful. Now I'm going to jump to the chat. Brittany said that, the 2-minute rule. So if it can be done in 2 minutes, basically just do it now, or setting a 2-minute timer and seeing how much you can get done. That is also a really great thing. Okay, so Brittany says, my challenge has been changes to my plan due to new opportunities popping up. For example, my husband's t-shirt apparel company has an opportunity to be a vendor at 2 shows. This advances family finance goals, but needs my time in marketing. Good, but unexpected. I'm a little overwhelmed with adjusting and hanging in there. Yeah, so this is why adjust is the last part of the Modern Planner framework, because life rarely stays the same and our priorities rarely stay the same for very long. Sometimes they're the same for a day, and then something comes up and you're like, wow, we need to change that. So this is a great example, because we create a plan and that's all well and good, but life happens. So learning how to, when this comes up, and this is where talking about trade-offs and negotiating come in really handy. I'm going to write some of these things down, because I want to make sure that in my comments when I post the replay, that I give you guys a bit of a teaser for those of you watching the replay. Okay. So this is where understanding and talking about trade-offs and negotiating comes into play, because Brittany's got a great plan for her month, and now suddenly there's 2 great opportunities to be a vendor. Now, I'm assuming family finance goals is a top priority. So what she has to decide is that more of a, before saying yes to the vendor situation for both of these shows, is this and family finance goals more important than these other things? If the answer is yes, then great. Say yes to both of those opportunities and then readjust your plan. However, if you use one of the prioritizing worksheets, and here's the thing about decision making, what happens is not that we get addicted to saying yes, but most of us don't really know how to say no. So every request that comes through, we say yes, and then we struggle and scramble to reprioritize our life and create a new plan. Instead of pausing before we answer the question, before we say yes or no, and looking at our priorities and saying, this is all my current stuff. Where does this new opportunity fit in on the scale? If it fits down third or fourth or whatever, then maybe don't say yes to it. Maybe you need to pause and say, hey, do you mind if we put that on hold for a couple weeks? I need to see how some of my other stuff plays out. Then if you get those top 1 or 2 or 3 priorities done and you're like, yeah, you know what? I can handle adding that in this month. Then go back to them and say, hey, can I take this on? Now, I totally get that we don't always have the luxury of being able to pause before we answer. But as much as possible, try to ask for time before you reply. And then run through your priorities worksheet with everything that's current and this new opportunity. Sorry, guys. So dry in here. With your current priorities and this new opportunity and see where it stacks up. So what I'd recommend for Brittany or for anyone else facing the situation, when something new comes in, you need to let something else go. So this is the concept of trade-off. So a trade-off is the fact that saying yes to one thing means saying no to another. What happens is, as individuals, especially as women, let's just be honest, we just add and add and add and add, thinking we can do it all. And then we crumble and we wonder, why did I crumble? Well, it's because we added way too much stuff to our life. So I think it's really important to notice that if we're going to say yes to something and add, do we need to ask ourselves the question, what do I need to let go of? Because like in the training video, when I talk about priorities, right, the etymology, priority used to be a single word. You could only have one priority, and we still only can. So in this moment, my priority is being on this call with you. I don't think you would appreciate it very, very much if I was on this call and I was like trying to read emails. No, I mean, that would be impossible because I'm like talking and I can't multitask like that. So in every moment, in every hour, in every day, we can in each moment, we can only have one priority. When that priority is finished, then I can move on to something else, which is the next. Same with like projects, right? Like you can only work on one thing at a time. So that's our priority. The issue is that now we think, oh, well, I can have 10 priorities this week. So what I always do is with my projects, like especially this week, I have them lined up on my Trello board and they are in order. Now, a couple things I have to move ahead both sort of simultaneously because, well, they're both happening the same day. So I kind of have to move them forward, but I do have them in order. It's like, I need to do this promo before this goes live, and that's okay for me to put time towards that. So that's just an example. So hopefully that helps. But that's the adjusting piece. And the topic of trade-offs is if you're saying yes to something and you're adding something to your plate, what are you letting go of, at least until this is done? Because we can't just keep adding and adding. It's like juggling. Right? I don't know about you, but guys, I can't even juggle with 2 things. Like I can't even do the motion of juggling. I'm really bad. But use it as an analogy. If I could juggle and I had 3 things and I was doing really, really well, I could maybe add a 4th, maybe add a 5th. But if you were to just keep adding balls to that, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, eventually they would just all fall. The goal is to never drop all the balls in life. To never just go and have them all over, because that's how relationships get ended. That's how health gets destroyed. That's how stress just wreaks havoc. So the goal is to keep our life only juggling what we can healthily manage at one time. Okay? So hopefully that helps. Kiana said it's hard for me to work during the week after class and appointments, so I try to cram it all on the weekend. And you know what? That is totally okay. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think we don't necessarily need evening themes. I'm like, if you're able to kind of like keep up with food prep and laundry and stuff like that and go to bed early and get lots of sleep so that then on the weekend you can focus on that, then that's what works for you. And that's awesome. So basically that was the one question. That was a bunch of my ideas and thoughts, and I hope that was helpful. Not too much about priorities, but we definitely did chat about it. So for anyone live, drop me a question if you have one in the chat box. I don't know why it's so dry in here. Probably because we weren't in our house for 2 weeks. Hopefully that will help me. And then if there aren't any more questions, I will close this up and post it in the Facebook group. So I'll just give another minute. So let me know if you have a question. I'm just looking at what time it is. Perfect. I don't see anything. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I'm going to put a few polls in the Facebook group because I would love to see if there's a better way for us to do kind of like Q&A about the topic, because I'm finding the Zoom calls, I don't know if the time is really working for people. So, because not very many people are ever able to be live or submitting questions. So I'm just thinking ahead to next quarter, and I'd like to update things a little bit if it works. So just wanting your feedback on that. And also there's an extra week in Q2. So we get to decide where that goes. And I've got a couple options that work with my schedule for content, and I'd like your guys' opinion on that. Yeah, this time is hard. It's easy for me because I have a nanny, but I think it's not working well for a lot of people. So that's all right. I don't think there's any more questions. I will go ahead and stop the recording, post this, and then we'll do some polls over in the Facebook group. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your week.